The Chicago Bears go from 7-1 to 8-5, and now they got to figure out how to get a win against the Green Bay Packers. Welcome into Hot Reads, your weekly look at the NFL with Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman. My name is Tom Vandervoort. Troy, I know you're going to Chicago for this Bears-Packers matchup, and just very simply with the Chicago Bears, what's been missing from that team in the last 4 or 5 weeks here?
Well, I think that looking at it, Tom, that the biggest difference is that they haven't gotten the takeaways, like they had earlier in the year. This team has had a hard time winning games when they haven't, had a lot of takeaways. And you look at their record, when they have 2 turnovers defensively, their record is 2-2. When they have more than 2, they win those games. When they have less than 2, they haven't won one yet. So it's a team that defensively started off the year extremely well. Of course, they were able to score touchdowns defensively, and I think that maybe hid some of the problems that they've had on the offensive side of the ball. They've just been very inconsistent. I like Matt Forte. I think he's one of the really outstanding players in this league, but they've just had some issues on the offensive side of the ball, and it's kind of caught up to them here over the last 5 or 6 ball games.
Yeah, it seems that way. And, it's interesting. You talk about Forte, and a guy I really like is Brandon Marshall. Certainly hard to blame him for what the team's going through. Talk about Marshall as a receiver. He's averaging over 100 yards a game. The last 3 weeks, he's had over 10 catches. How does he compare or stack up against some of the top receivers in the league? Well,
he's right up there. I think that, when you look at the top receivers, whether it's in today's game or past players, the guys who I really admire and respect are those that everyone knew that they were going to try to get the ball into their hands, and yet they are able to find ways to get open and catch the football and have an impact, each week. And Brandon Marshall certainly has been that guy. He's been a great acquisition for Chicago. Certainly there's a relationship there going back to Denver with Jay Cutler, and it's pretty obvious when you watch the games that, Jay Cutler has a real trust and confidence in knowing that Brandon Marshall's going to make a play, and if he can't make a play, then he's going to do all that he can to keep it from being intercepted, and that's the guy that Jay Cutler's been looking for. And I think that with that being said, some of the complementary receivers have to begin playing a bigger role than they have up to this point. Brandon Marshall's had an outstanding year, as we know. But one of the reasons why they have struggled offensively, particularly in their passing game, is they haven't gotten enough out of the guys around them.
Yeah, and they really don't have anything from the tight end position, I noticed as well. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Green Bay Packers, have gone through a lot of adversity this year. They look to be in a pretty good spot right now. How does adversity really help that team? They had such a smooth year last year, ended up losing in the playoffs to the Giants. Does it actually help a team, in a sense, to go through some of this adversity, some of the injuries that they've gone through? Are they more battle-tested that way?
Yeah, I think it has with this team. It's different from team to team, but I think the fact that they've been able to overcome some of these setbacks and have had a number of guys that have gone down, and yet they've been able to win games, that's the most important part. I mean, last year, certainly they had a great regular season, but it didn't pay off once they got into the postseason, losing in the divisional round. And I think that it's a club that looks at what they've been able to do this year, the way that they've had to do it. Offensively, they're not rolling through people like they did a year ago, but that probably will help them when they get into the postseason. I see a running game that's starting to get better. A little bit like it did in 2010. That was a team that did not run the ball particularly well, and then James Starks came on at the end of the year and then through the playoffs. And, maybe that will happen with Alex Green and DeJuan Harris, and then, of course, Ryan Grant got a little bit of action last week. But if they can get the running game going as they have here in recent games, that's going to really help them. And then on the other side of it, defensively, Charles Woodson's supposed to be back this week. Clay Matthews is expected to be back. If those guys return and they can remain healthy, then this is a team on really both sides of the ball that should continue to get better and start playing with even more confidence than they already have. And it could be a dangerous team when they move into the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, listen, thanks so much for your time this week, as always, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Okay, thank you, Tom.